Hello, my name is Zach. I'm your average Python developer, and I'm here to talk a little bit about list comprehension. Now, to do list comprehension, you have to be a little bit intermediate with your Python skills. I would say even if you're late beginner, you can do this. It really just comes down to how well you understand for loops and lists. So, I'm not amazing at explaining things, so you're going to have to bear with me here as I mess up and stutter. This is going to be one take, so if it comes out good, it will be posted. So make sure you join the Programmer's Program Dream Discord server, which will be in the link below. Very amazing place to hang out, and if you ever need Python help or help in any other language, C, C++, C#, JavaScript, whatever it may be, we do that. And even if your language wasn't listed right there, we have a help channel for other languages that we do not have a channel for. But anyways, let's hop into the tutorial. So what this is an interactive Python interpreter called PT Python. It's no different than the normal interpreter, other than it has a little bit more graphics, and you can see I have syntax highlighting. So to explain list comprehension, let's go ahead and first make a basic example of without list comprehension. Let's generate a list 0 through 10. So we're going to do this by, let's just create a temporary list, and then we're going to do, or we'll actually name it my list because we're cool like that, my list. And now we'll do a for loop, and we're going to do for I in range, and we're going to do the range of what we're going to do. Now we're going to do my list.append ri. So this right here is going to make my list a range from 0 through 10. Now this is 2 or 3 lines, or whatever you want to classify it as. One for creating or declaring the list, and here is the for loop for actually making it 0 through 10. Now here is the equivalent with list comprehension. So without even declaring my list, which we actually can do like this, my list, we'll redeclare it, and we're going to do I for I in range, and we're doing a range 1 through 11. So this right here will make my list, once again, 0 through 10. Now, to show that we didn't just, do nothing, if I were to change to my, we print my, same thing. So what this is it's no different than your average for loop, but the output goes here, or the iterator goes here. So what's happening is that it's doing everything a typical for loop is doing, but instead, once this is done, instead of it automatically appends, if that makes sense. Whatever's here is going to be appended to this list. So I is going to be appended to I, whatever, how many times. And it's a for loop, but in a list comprehension. Now, this is on the more simple side of things, and this can be quite easy to understand, and it is useful if you want to make a list, or a range, or if you want to make a range of random numbers. If you want to have 10 random numbers, but you don't want to have multiple, like for loop, whatever. List comprehension can be useful in those cases. Now, some may question the fact that simplifying things down to a list comprehension might be useless, which I can kind of half agree with. I find list comprehension to be more readable for me, but definitely for newer developers, or even developers in the intermediate stage of development, probably will prefer the typical, for loop. It's concise and still readable, and I think the same goes for list comprehension as well, but anyways, continuing forth. Now let's go to a more complex example. Let's say we have a for loop here. Let's say for I in range 0 to 10 again. So to do another range 0 to 10. Now what we're going to do is we're going to check if I modulus 2 is equal to 0, print I. I don't need to do that, I'll just do I. So that did nothing. There we go. Okay, so you can see now we're only going to get even numbers. How would we do this with list comprehension? Now this is something we can still easily do with list comprehension. Doing the same thing as we did before, we can do I for I in range 0 through 11. So that's 0 to 10. So how are we going to add that if statement? Well, Python actually has, in list comprehension, you can put a conditional statement at the end of your for loop. So right here, I could do an if. So what that means is that unlike, your traditional for loop where you have everything here, whatever, you can have your conditionals here. There, you can only have one conditional. You can't have an else either. That is one downside to a list comprehension. From what I know, there's no easy way of doing an else statement in this. There is a way to do it, but it is not clean, and I would rather prefer a syntax like this for that. But in this case, we can just do if I modulus 2 is equal to 0, because we still have access to this I variable here. So we can go ahead and print that. And there we go. Now it puts us in a list, and boom, right there. Now you can see I printed here instead of appending to a list because I was lazy and I didn't actually define a list beforehand. But the point still stands. So this is more complex, but it is still quite simple to wrap your head around. But this I here can actually be mutilated or messed around with, tampered, whatever you want to call it, before it goes into the list. So what I mean by this is if we have a list here, we can actually go ahead and do +1. Now this is going to make 0, 1, 2, 3, and whatever. So we're going to get all odd numbers. Now this goes above the range 10. So we can actually do here, if we wanted to do this, we can do and. So, well, okay, let me explain what I'm going to do. We don't want the range to go over 10, right? Let's say that when we're generating this, we don't want it to go over 10. Now, what you can't and can do, I guess, so if you're doing it like this, what you can do is you can do an and operator, and you can do I plus 1 not equal, or is not greater than, oh gosh, okay, I'm fumbling, not 1 greater than 0, right? I think that would make sense. Wait, what am I saying? God, not greater than 10. Okay, that might work. Yes, okay, boom. Look at that, Python skills. So this is a little bit more complex example here with adding a little not operator here. So what this does is makes it so the list can no longer get above 10, even if we were to do something like +2. So if we were to plus everything by 2, it will not go over 10, which it's exactly 10 there. So let's add it by 3. And once again, we're going to be odd numbers in that. Oh, yes. Okay, there we go. So now, boom. So that is list comprehension. It does get a little bit more complex as you go along, but this is the basic concept, and that has been my basic tutorial for Python list comprehension. I hope you enjoyed, and have a good night.